And we are live, and it is a fantastic Fire Day, and it is a Friday, so we can go Fry-yay! Yes, it's Fry-yay, it's Friday. But more importantly, it is Fire Day. I'm Vanessa Lane with Viddy Tips, but this is not just Viddy Tips again, it is Fire Day. And Brandy Holloway, my partner in crime, she is off and about, but she will be joining us online. So Brandy, we can't wait to hear your thoughts and questions. So who is our guest that you can see right now? Her name is Jennifer Spor, and here's a little bit about her. So Jennifer Spor is a transformational coach, and a spiritual mentor, intuitive writer, and soon-to-be podcast host. She helps women who are feeling stuck, unfulfilled, and called to do more to connect with their higher purpose, align their life with their values, their passions, their strengths, and activate who they are meant to be in this world. Welcome so much, Jennifer. How are you doing today?
I am
I think we lost you just a little bit there, Jennifer. Hold on just a minute. We're going to see if we can't get you back. Hold on. Just wait right there. So say something for us. Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Great, we got you back. So I think everyone missed that intro. So go ahead and say it one more time. So tell everyone a little bit about you. What is a transformational coach?
When a lot of people hear transformational, they think about change, right? And it is change. But really what I do is help people who they really are, who they've always been. So experiencing that transformation is about peeling back those layers of doubt and fear and other things that have held us back.
Wow, you know, when you say peeling, I think like peeling of an onion. Is that kind of like, you know, peeling back the layers like you said?
It is, whether it's doubt, fear, most definitely things from our past can essentially mask our authentic selves, you know, who we really are, and of who we really are, that fulfillment, that joy, you know, doing things that we're passionate about, seeing the unlimitless possibility that exists for each of us.
Well, it is so true. You know, we were talking about a little bit before we went live, and we talked about things that happen in our past that creep up, that sometimes prevent us from seeing the possibilities as we go forward. So a little bit first, when it comes to your present-day business, do you work with all types of people, men and women? Do you find yourself that you work more with women? Is it on a business level? Is some just personal relationships? Can you tell us a little bit more about the people that you work with?
Sure. I work mostly with women, and I do work with some men. But there are commonalities amongst all of them, right? All of the people that I work with are in some type of higher level leadership position. It's somebody who has reached a point in their life where they've checked off a lot of the boxes of what society traditionally tells us that it means to achieve success, right? They've been chasing after things outside of themselves, thinking that that's what will bring them that joy and fulfillment. And they've reached a place in their life where they've run out of things to chase after, and they have realized that they're stuck. You know, they're feeling guided to do something where they can make a bigger impact in the world, but they don't know how to get from here to there. And so that's where I come in. I help them with the clarity, and I help them with the how.
So that's interesting, because I was reading your bio on your website, and you said a couple things that really triggered me. That you left the house at 16, and that you've had that six-figure job, which is what you described, that you work with the executives mostly. You had that six-figure job where it could support you monetarily, but that it wasn't supporting you, as you said, emotionally. There wasn't that fulfillment of joy. Can we go back a little bit, and I would love to hear just a little bit of your story of that 16 to when you took that corporate job, so people can kind of hear where you came from. I would love to hear that story.
Yeah, I'll try to make a very long story shorter. But yeah, I've been on my own since I was 16. I made a decision to leave home at 16. And the reason why was because things at home, my mom and I get along well, um, and escalating essentially. And so I had went to my family and asked to come and live with them, and that didn't happen. And at the time it was really because I think they didn't believe that things were as volatile as they were. So I made a decision that I deserved better for myself at that age, and I left. And so I was working full time, and going to school at 16. So that actually laid the foundation for some pretty deeply rooted survival issues, which I think were, looking back on it, the root cause of why I spent so many years thinking that I needed to achieve the next promotion, to acquire the next thing, to feel like I was fulfilled. Um, so I worked for a couple of years. I, waited on tables, worked in fast food, did whatever I needed to do, right? And then I got into retail when I was 19. And so prior to starting my coaching practice a couple years ago, I had a well-established career. I'd worked in the retail industry for over 23 years. And so during that entire time, right, I was a manager running my own store at 21. So I spent many years in leadership and mentoring roles. And what kept me in that industry for so long was my love for wanting to help lift others up to success, was my love of training people. Even when I was a little girl, I wanted to be a teacher, right? So it's kind of like I came full circle, coming back to actually starting my coaching practice. But to not get off track, but to continue on, right? So I worked my way up in the retail industry. Toward the end of my career, I was a director of store operations for a $12 billion company. For 7 years, I held that position. But what happened is I hit a wall. So there were no more promotions. I had the salary, I had the house, I had all of the things. And that's when the fog started to lift. There was nothing else for me to acquire, nowhere else left to go. And what I actually realized at that time is that I didn't really know who I was, because I'd spent so much of my life chasing after things outside myself. And when I did have free time, it was spent doing things that everybody else wanted to do. So it was like the universe forced me kind of into a space where it's like, okay, you're not going to ignore yourself anymore, right? You need to get to rediscover yourself. But what happened was, when I started feeling that call to make a change, I didn't take action on it right away, because I think I was on 40 at the time, and I was scared. It's like, I've been doing the same career the whole time. Can I do anything else? Will I do anything else? What will happen? And just not being able to see that path ahead. The catalyst for me actually taking action to change my life, to change my career a few years ago, was when my mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And at the time, I was living in New Jersey, and I was flying back and forth between New Jersey and Idaho just to try to be with her and my family, and to spend those last days with her. And there was a particular moment, one of those days, where I was at her bedside, and at the same time feeling pressure from my office to be engaged in things that were toxic, to be engaged in things that, in the realm of the big picture, just didn't seem important. And it was like a switch flipped on. At that moment, I decided, you know what? I'm not going to stay stuck in my life anymore. I'm not passionate about my job anymore. And I'm not going to allow myself to be trapped. That's it. And that was the beginning of the end. And from there, it was, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You know, it wasn't an easy transition process. There were some politics, you know, not everybody was thrilled with me deciding to step down from my position. But it was a lesson in listening to my higher guidance, and just following what I was being called to do. So it was actually that journey of transition a few years ago that inspired me to do what I do today.
And you know, thank you for sharing, because I know everybody that's watching right now, everybody, please, if you have questions for Jennifer, please give a shout out right now. But you said several things that were just so wonderful, and I know hard for you to say. But what was interesting, you talked about this fog. I mean, we talk about the peeling the layers of the onion, but you talk about it, you had this fog, like you were in a daze. And it's funny you should say that. When you talked about climbing the corporate ladder, I've had a couple discussions with my dad. And, you know, God bless my dad. You know, I lived with my grandparents a lot when my mom and dad went back to school, because they had me at a very young age. They didn't have their college degrees yet. And when they got them, my dad thought that he needed to provide, and the only way to provide was to drive 4 hours to a city that could pay. And that meant, though, I saw him only on weekends. And one of the things that he tells me to this day is that he wishes he was around more. That if he knew then what he knows now as a 67-year-old, that it had nothing to do with the money or anything like that, that those things that gave him joy, that those things that filled his heart with happiness had nothing to do with cranking out numbers or being at an executive place or flying across. He would fly to England and London, and I see that. I see that. It's like living in a fog. And for everybody that's watching at home right now, do you ever feel that way? Do you ever feel that you're living in a fog? Do you ever feel you have those moments where you're just doing things, but they're not fulfilling you? So please make your comments below and let us know if you have those same sensations, those same feelings. Now, we talked about something also that I want to bring up is we talked about this idea of, you know, you went through all of this as a child, and we talked about this idea, if you had to go back and redo your life, if it was like Aladdin, you can wish 3 wishes and a magic genie, would you go back and change anything? And so what are your thoughts about that? Do any of your clients say that, I just wish I could go back? I wish I could just turn back time, as you will, the song says, if I could turn back time. But if you could do that, do you I know if I could turn back time.
Video.
I know, I'm sorry, Cher, I didn't do you justice. But do you have clients that say, do you have clients that say that, I just wish I could turn back time? Do you have clients that say that, and what is your response to that?
Not only do my clients say that, right? A lot of people say the answer, and what I tell my clients, so it is that, well, first let me I wouldn't change, because I believe that every experience in our life, every moment has a purpose in shaping who we are. And that's what I tell my clients as well. Please don't regret anything in your life, because everything serves a purpose. Everything is an opportunity for a learning. But what our experiences also do is uniquely equip us to serve the people that we're meant to serve later in life, right? If we don't experience a certain level of contrast in our life, we could never understand the value of what we want. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And as we're talking about that, I want to talk about that, but I want to give a huge shout out to right now to a few people. Hey, Kim Schuer, thanks so much. I hope I pronounced your last name, girl, right. Hey, Amy Tully. Hey, Lori Knutson. Mary O'Donnell, thank you guys so much for watching right now on the Girls on Fire Network. It does make sense. People say the same thing. They say, you know, I hear your story of being assaulted, and, you know, Brandy has her story. You know, people just found out on Monday that I, you know, have what they call the the stages of MS. You know, I don't have it yet, but it rocked my world when I got sick for 9 months and I couldn't walk and I couldn't see sometimes and all these things. And people say, well, don't you wish that life could be different, that you could go back and change it? And I said, like you said, no. Those moments you worked through, and they gave and opened up to new things, the new things you learned that weren't possible, the new opportunities. And there were things during those moments that were uncomfortable, like you say, that you learned from and you grew from and you became stronger in areas from that gave you the strength to where you are now. And who's to say, I always tell people too, like you said, who's to say if you could really do what, you know, I sat with my kids last night and watched the new Aladdin, and the people version of Aladdin, and you know, my daughter was like, when I put her to bed, don't you wish we had 3 wishes and we could change anything? And I told her, I said, well, what if you could? Would your life be the same now, though? If you could take away the things that you wish could take away, it may not be the same. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So if I missed something that you said, it's because the screen froze up for a few moments. But from what I heard, yeah, when you talk about that, I think of especially what you said with your daughter about, you know, well, would our lives be the same if we did change something? Would they be the same now? What comes to mind for me is the butterfly effect. And I think that was a movie, right? It's like any alter, any change that we would want to make, if we actually made that change, would have a ripple effect. And who knows, you know, it could impact our family, you know, our friends, people that we know, what we're doing for an occupation today. I mean, the possibilities are unlimited.
So when we're talking about, when you're talking with your clients about what they want to feel, are they a lot of emotions? What are the words that come to mind when you're working with someone? Are they saying emotional responses to you that I just want to feel this? What are their thoughts?
Yeah, the biggest, probably the one I hear the most when we first start working together, is that they just feel stuck. They've already tried a certain number of approaches to be able to move forward on their path, which haven't been sustainable. And that's what brings them to, you know, brings them across my path typically. So they talk about feeling stuck. They talk about just having lost their joy and their sense of purpose. They talk about being unfulfilled, feeling just kind of like they're existing and not really living.
Which is true. You know, you said that, you know, that it's interesting, different people's perspectives, I should say, because you said that, and I'm sorry to hear this, that you lost your mother, I think you said a few years ago, correct? To lung cancer.
True.
And
Yes.
and I have several people that are going through this. They have a family member that's ill, very ill. You know, my mother has been battling stage 4 cancer for years. What's interesting is when people go through that, I look at these people that go through that, and their perspective is wildly different. Wildly different. It's like the post I made on LinkedIn today. My kids showed up after being home with my mom and my dad for 4 weeks, and the utter joy, the running down the airport, full steam, like the joy that physically comes out of a child. I had the same joy as I was hugging them. And my mom, God bless her, I mean, she has that same joy every day. She doesn't feel well. But it's like this joy for life. You love it all, even when in pain. You love life. You feel such joy. And what do you tell people on how to get back to that? I feel like we knew it as a child, and as we grow up, it's like, oh, I have to get up the corporate ladder, and oh, I have to make this amount of money, and oh, I have to have the big house. What do you tell your clients that have that, but they don't have the same joy that I find that so many children have, and so many people that I would say are struggling so hard with devastating things, but they have that utter joy about them that they wouldn't change anything because life is wonderful.
Yeah. We can't control everything that happens, but what we do have control over is ourselves. And no matter what happens, we always are empowered to make a choice. And that's what it starts with. It starts with making a choice that you want to feel joy. And you can feel joy amidst the darkest of circumstances. What you said about your mom, I resonate with so much. And it's a great example. My mom was the same. She was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and she lived 14 months after that. But she had an amazing attitude the whole time. And despite the rough childhood that I had, you know, the abuse and some of the other things that occurred, my mom and I had the opportunity to spend time together.
Which is a blessing.
I didn't expect to get this emotional.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. It is a blessing. It is a blessing. And like you said, she had this most amazing, you said, outtake and outlook, I should say, on life. And you were able to come back together with her, you said.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I think you and I had a conversation before we went live today, and I had explained that at the time that I left home, her behaviors toward me didn't make sense to me. But later in life, I found out that she was diagnosed with a mental illness, which brought me a lot of clarity around why certain things happened the way that they did. We had an estranged relationship for a long time. There were years that went by that I didn't know where she was, but yeah, toward the end, we came together and we were able to spend time together. And she regretted a lot of, you know, those experiences early on in life. So yeah, I mean, it was a huge blessing, but her attitude, despite the circumstances, you know, she had a pretty rough life herself. And it just goes to show the power of the human spirit, right?
It does go to show the power of the human spirit because, like you said, we can't control anything. We can control ourselves and our own thoughts. We talked about that. We talked about, before we went live, everyone who's watching, we talked about forgiveness because, you know, Brandy and I have talked about this, and Brandy says it so well that she chooses to be not around people that don't fulfill her heart and soul and just bring her down. And that's a choice, and I admire that because you're right, we have that choice. Yeah. We have our choice amongst ourselves on how we behave and what we say and how we let things affect us and who we are around and how they affect us. And that's a choice we're making. That's a choice on what we say and how we're feeling in relation to others. And I think that resonated so well with me because, and I love my mother unconditionally, but we were always slightly estranged, you know. It's like I used to talk to my dad and say that I just want to feel accepted. And he said, that's something you're going to have to get over because she will always love you unconditionally. But you have to get over that because you have to feel accepted. You have to feel that you're worthy. It's not dependent on anybody else. And you have to realize that Somebody else has limitations, and you can't, as much as you want, you can't wish them to change. You know, they are only in control of what they can control and what they choose to control. And we cannot take that burden on. We cannot take that burden on to go, it's my fault for other things, when we have only control over what we say and what we think and how we behave ourselves. Thoughts?
So true. So true. And what is very telling as well, you talk about, right, that basically happiness is an inside job, and it is. Whenever we long to feel accepted or to feel loved, and we feel like someone else isn't giving that to us, that's a mirror for us. That's a mirror for us to look within and ask, well, how can I accept myself? How can I love myself? It's very telling.
It is. It is. It is telling. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, my husband and I have been to lots of couples therapists over our lifetime. It's challenging being married. It's challenging working at being married. And every therapist used to say the same thing. You have to stop blaming. Stop going, well, he always says this and he always says that, and instead they would always tell me this thing. Well, tell him I feel, not you do. It's not you. It's I feel. But the same sense. It's now that I'm looking at it, and now that I'm actually hearing you, I actually wish I had heard, and what I will now tell myself going forward is I have control over the way that things make me feel, and I have control over allowing them to feel that way. And it's just about, yes, to some extent it's reframing, but it's also reframing in our own minds, correct? And telling ourselves that we are in control of what we think someone says versus what they actually say, and we are in control of how we receive that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry.
That's okay.
The floodgates opened, and now I'm like.
But everybody on Girls on Fire Network, we are so honored and grateful for her. Danielle Adams says, I remember a time when being held responsible for my own feelings made me mad. That's very interesting. Danielle, can you elaborate on that? That is interesting, but we do that, right? Where we look at our reactions in our own life, and we go through those gamut of emotions. Do you see that in your clients? You go through all the various emotions, from sad to happy to mad to all those things?
Absolutely. And anger is an indication that there is lack of forgiveness. And also that we haven't had the opportunity to fully process whatever experience it is that we're feeling anger about. And that's actually really important, because so many of us are taught to believe that we need to suppress our emotions, right? You even hear a lot out there, think, do affirmations, be happy, and all of that. And I'm on board with that too. But what happens, right, is you hear a lot of that, but it's like putting a Band-Aid on something that needs surgery. You can make a decision. And I said it myself, it starts with making a decision that you want change. But you also have to gain an understanding of what got you to where you are today in order to experience sustainable transformation.
That's true. That's true. So Danielle expanded on it. She says, Danielle Adams says, it couldn't possibly be my fault. I was made to feel that way. Got it. So she said her first thought was, I remember a time when being held responsible for my own feelings made me mad. It couldn't possibly be my fault. I was made to feel that way. It was everyone else's fault. Oddly, though, once I took responsibility for my own feelings, it all changed, though. And that is true. We can take responsibility for our own change. So for your clients, I mean, do you find that writing? I find writing is so therapeutic, or music is therapeutic, because sometimes I'm really, really mad, just like Danielle says. I'm really mad at maybe a behavior, maybe even a behavior that I've elicited, maybe I've allowed to happen. And there are different ways to go through that, to process through that. What are some tips that you can tell everyone that helps to process through those different emotions? Because we have so many emotions, from anger to sadness.
Yeah, absolutely. The first tip I have is find something that works for you. So there isn't a cookie cutter approach. Everyone is different. What I will say, based on my own experience and that the clients that I work with, is journaling is one thing that is hugely effective. Now, there are different types of journaling, right? There's gratitude journaling. What I'm talking about is just the journaling where you're sitting with your feelings and you're writing about them. And what's happening is you're healing when you're doing that because you're giving yourself an outlet to process the experience, to you're giving yourself the space, and that's so important, to give ourselves the space. So many of us just want to, you know, yeah, that happened, let's just keep charging ahead, and you do want to move forward, but going back to what I said earlier, it's so important to understand what got us to where we are so that we can interrupt that pattern moving forward. So journaling is a fantastic practice. You had mentioned music. That's also a really great practice. Exercise, and even meditation. For me personally, so meditation is something that I teach all of my clients. For me, it changed my life. Before I started doing meditation, I was in a really high stress job, and I actually had to take 2 medications for anxiety because I was so stressful. When I started doing meditation and just giving myself that space each day, right, to process my thoughts, to set the tone for my day, to just give myself that peace and that space, um, that anxiety went away. Everything changed because I was giving myself the care that I needed.
Yeah, it is really important to do what you call that self-care, that putting away, you know, I think especially even in today's with social media, because I think, you know, amongst, I think a lot of the women, even on the Girls on Fire Network, I know some of them feel overwhelmed with their social media, that it takes over, that they're overwhelmed as a mother, as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, and then you add social media onto it. But I agree with that. At some point, we have to, again, make a personal choice to invest in our self-care, whether that's, as you say, meditation, writing first thing in the morning, and doing it. I don't know what your thoughts are. I do it during the day. So I may take moments in the morning when I have coffee in the morning before my kids get up. But I love to, if I'm having a rough moment and I'm something won't get out of my head, it's the first thing out of my husband's head is go take the dog for a walk. And sure enough, when I'm back taking the dog for the walk, and I'll have left my phone here, and he's just happy as can be. It's like that kid syndrome where he's bobbing along, wagging his tail. I mean, there's not a care in him in the world, but there's something about taking that dog for the walk. So I even try to do it if I can, and that's a choice, right? If I say if I can, that's a choice to make, is to do it during the day to kind of fill up that cup of mine, to make sure that I'm not losing out, you know, all of my resources during the day. Thoughts on
Absolutely.
that?
That goes back. Yeah, absolutely. That is spot on. It goes back to what I mentioned earlier, right? About how we each have to find something that works for us. In doing that, we set ourselves up for success. So, yeah, I mean, there have been times that I meditate during the day, that I meditate at night. You know, the morning is something that I do regardless, but it's really important to listen to our bodies, to listen to how we feel, and to follow that guidance, right? So even if it's taking the dog for a walk in the middle of the day, that's fine. Set aside your social media time or whatever you have scheduled, and go take care of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, some women I know love to have a nail day, and some people, like for me, my hair day every 5 weeks, I turn it off. It's my husband doesn't even text me. It's everything goes dark. You know, and I still may do a few things on my phone, but that's a day where I just, you know, and adding something every day is important. So we're going to stop for just a bit on talking about all the things we've been talking, because we're going to do some rapid fire questions. Because I want to hear who you are when you're not who you are. And we want to know things. Of course, the Girls on Fire Network always want to know something about alcohol. So my first question on this rapid fire question series is, are you wine, beer, or spirits?
All three. It depends on the mood and where I am. I will tell you that I am more of a social drinker. So if it's spirits, I like vodka soda. If it's wine, my favorite wine is a red, a Pinot Noir. And I do like beer. Something lighter, usually. So yeah, I like to be diverse.
Got it. So Brandy, she's a red wine girl. So let me tell you, she's right up your alley. So, and when it comes, I can meet you at the bar all day long, girl. So vodka, tequila, you name it, I'm there. All right. So let's see. A favorite. Here's another one. Are you more of an entree person or for dessert?
Oh, that's really tough. I think I'd have to pick dessert.
Yes, she's a dessert girl. Yes, she is. All right. So now I've got to ask, everyone wants to know what favorite dessert. What's your favorite dessert of all time?
Strawberry shortcake.
Ooh, that one's a hard. I mean, I'm a chocolate girl, but even strawberries in season with oh, yeah, we can do that with a little bit of whipped cream. That's all day. Yes, it is. All right. So, cat or dog?
Cat. I have 2 cats.
Woo. All right, so, okay, platforms, favorite platform, because we're all on the platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook?
LinkedIn, hands down.
Yes, girl, Brandy, she's right there. She says LinkedIn, yes. All right, last one, favorite book?
Oh my gosh. Okay, my favorite book. So I'm all about self-help books, but a fiction book is my favorite one, and it's called Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. You may or may not be familiar with the movie.
I am familiar. My husband is shaking his head too right now, so he's behind the camera.
Yeah.
So yes, Practical Magic. So ladies, everyone, Practical Magic. All right, so now we're going to get back to a few more things as we're talking. I'm going to see who's on really quickly, see who else is shouting out. Tanika Boone. Hey, Tanika Boone, thanks so much for watching. All right, so last question. Well, let's do one more question. Your favorite luxury for yourself? Spa treatment, massage, your favorite luxury?
Massage.
Ah, I'm right there with you, girl. I'm right there with you. All right, so we're almost at the end of our time, but I want you to go ahead and I want to thank you for your time, by the way, but I want you to leave everyone with your number one tip that you can tell them, because we talked a lot today. We talked about joy. We talked about empowering yourself. We talked about the power of positivity and obviously transformation. So what is a tip that you can leave everyone on the Girls on Fire Network and beyond, you know, to help them through their day?
Yeah. So every experience, everything in our external environment once started out as a thought. My number one tip would be to be cognizant of your emotions and your thoughts, because they're creating your future experience. You can choose to make different decisions about how you want to feel if you want to change your circumstances.
That's so true. That is very, very, very true. And I'm blessed and honored to have my biz bestie, Brandy Holloway, who has been on watching. Thank you so much, girl. She does her best, and I do it right back at her. We check each other daily and remind ourselves to reframe our thoughts, and not only reframe our thoughts, but reframe who is around us that can influence our thoughts. And again, but it's again all about our own thoughts. So Jennifer Spor, thank you so much for joining us today. Before you sign off, I want to make sure that they can find you on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. So where can they find you?
Right. They can, I actually have a website, jenniferspor.com, so they can find me there. I'm definitely on LinkedIn under Jennifer Spor. You can find my profile there. I'm on Instagram as well under the same name, and I have a business page on Facebook as well under the same name.
Perfect. And what you said in your bio, I think it says that you will soon be a podcast host as well, correct?
Oh, yes. I'm super excited. So on August 21st, I'm launching a podcast. It's called Awake and on Purpose. And it's centered around, I'll be interviewing different people each week who will be sharing their inspirational stories about how they felt a call to change and what they did to move forward. I'm looking forward to sharing that. I know it's going to inspire a lot of people, right? We don't go through this journey alone, and so it's important for everybody to know that we're in this thing together.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, again, this has been an amazing Friday Fire Day. Woo, what a tongue twister. It's been an amazing Friday Fire Day, and we're going to say Fire-yay. Yes, Fire-yay. It's been a great day. We had the pleasure and the honor of being online with Jennifer Spor. Again, if you have not met her, please go on to LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, her website. Make sure to check in. Make sure to be on the lookout for that podcast. We talked about transformation today, all things dealing with, how can we change our thought process? How can we bring joy back into our life? Again, Jennifer, it has been an honor and a pleasure. Again, I'm Vanessa Lane. This has been an amazing Fire Day. Thank you so much for everyone that's watching. Big shout out to Brandy Holloway, who has been supporting us online. And we will see you next week for a no guest. You have to wait till Monday, but it's going to be exciting. Thank you again, Jennifer, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.